Welcome to another episode of the Milk Your Brand podcast. And today with Filipe Jensen. Hi, Filipe.
Hello.
Filipe is a marketing and employer branding or marketing genie at Critical TechWorks. And this episode will be about nurturing a brand with storytelling. I will start with the first question. So, when it comes to attracting top talent to a company, how can storytelling be used to make the company more appealing?
Well, I think that storytelling is a tool that gives context to the audience about the company, about the job, about the role, and about the culture mostly. And if you just tell people what it's about, they don't engage with your message as much as if you show them and they reach the conclusions on their own. And so storytelling is a bit like treating your audience like adults. And I think it was the great innovation that storytelling, because storytelling has been used for ages before marketing. We started giving the name of storytelling and applying that concept fairly recently. But that's the innovation, is that people like to make up their own minds. They don't like to feel like they're manipulated, and marketing has that pitfall, and it has to straddle that fine line without going over and becoming too commercial. And I think storytelling is a very powerful tool to do that. And in employer branding, it's critical because the message is not as clear as selling a product. You need to you need to attract, not convert. And that difference suits storytelling a little bit better, I think, because attraction is a long-term process in order to feel attracted. So you start by getting curious, then you start being interested, then you are engaged. While conversion, there's usually a moment, a click, something. And storytelling is quite useful to keep a story going throughout time. About your brand, about what it we like to work at the place, who we are as an employer, how our coworkers are. There's all these stories that through time can paint a picture in the minds of our audience. And I think that's critical.
And you were talking about attraction and converting. So do you think the storytelling needs to adapt to the different stages?
Yes, I personally think that the marketing funnel is alive in all marketing disciplines, and in employer branding, it is as well. I think that storytelling has a how should I say it, has a path it needs to walk. Mm-hmm. It depends on whatever context is there, but there's always a path, and it starts with creating recognition, bringing awareness, and then going further and further into details. And people have to imagine themselves working at the place you are promoting, and they have to picture themselves and feel good about it. And so it's not easy to use a one sentence employer value proposition to explain all that. Usually employer value propositions are like skin deep. They don't go too deep. They're catchy, but not informative. And so you really need a strategy that's based on time, that engages with people in a deeper way. And so I like to think of it as attraction instead of conversion, although there's a conversion moment when people apply, of course. But I think that the top talent, I personally don't think that top talent is easily converted, because I have to imagine that they are hard to convince. So I can create a strategy that is appealing, because it may be true. It may be that top talent is looking for a job change and they'll convert easily. But I personally don't think it's a good idea assume that. So storytelling becomes useful to me as a framework, so I can strategize, and my team gets all the pieces together, and we make a little consumer journey. We do all the tools, actually.
That's great. And in your opinion, what is the key elements that you're based on to create a good storytelling?
Well, that's the most important thing is to show people and not tell people. That is the what I was talking about, allowing people to arrive at their own conclusions, to feel attracted. It's a two-way process. And the other is to employ our coworkers and use, for example, testimonials. We use a lot of testimonials to spread whatever message we need to spread, both internally and externally. And I think that's crucial because, like I said, people have to imagine themselves working at a place or doing something. And if they see people that they identify themselves with because they're in the same community, or they have the same role, or they're both, JavaScript developers, whatever, they can mirror themselves and see, project themselves into the future already converted. And that's the first step. So we use a lot of our resources, our people. They're our best asset in creating storytelling, stories that engage. And actually, I am almost, I would say, 95% of the times always surprised by the stories that our coworkers bring, because they're a lot more engaging than anything I could have imagined. We picture the strategy as we think it would work, and then it becomes a lot deeper, a lot richer, more textured, more believable. It's based on reality. It's not based on a hook. And yeah, so it's always the same process. We come up with an idea. That idea becomes a lot better by the time we start speaking with our coworkers and they start sharing. And sometimes it's just little snippets of a sentence, but we know that people will resonate with at some level somewhere. And also, I see that in real time when we go to job fairs and we bring developers to our booths to speak with on our behalf, and they don't talk to other developers about the projects. They don't talk about the benefits. They don't talk about the salaries. They talk about their experience, and that engages. And us, I'm not a recruiter, but sometimes I work as a recruiter, not confidently, but we really can't match that energy. Then we can talk about the details. Okay, send the CV there, and then reassure them and use human to human techniques to get the conversion. But the real work is made by our coworkers that paint a picture of what it's like to work there, that we could not as easily do it.
And since we're already talking about people and the way that you can involve them more, how can storytelling be leveraged to foster a sense of belonging within a company?
Because culture is a shared story, a story shared by many people, basically. So corporate culture is no different, I think. I think that, speaking a bit esoterically, I think our shared, I wouldn't say beliefs, but our shared principles and values, our shared experiences, they create like a space in which the veterans can welcome people into by sharing, by opening, and that space needs to be nurtured, usually by what we call in our company the internal comms team. But we all developers and corporate people, all of them work towards that. it's like I said, it's a shared experience. So new people come, they didn't witness, for example, last year's Christmas party. So we tell stories about them. It becomes like a little myth, a little, and watch out with that guy. And every little people has that story, and it builds up. And yeah, and it happens organically. If the place is good, it really happens without effort. You need to foster it by, shedding light onto it, but you don't need to feed content into it because it feeds itself. So yes, I think storytelling is a great way to give visibility to this shared experience that is working in a nice place, and even interpersonally, I think that when you need help at your work because you're not, something's wrong, you're not performing as well as you should, or something's happening. If there's a strong culture, and I'm not saying that the place is toxic or not toxic, but if there is a strong culture, help will come organically because there are other stories of people who needed help, and they know before they need help that they can ask for help. So we value autonomy a lot, and autonomy basically empowers people, but it's also a bit daunting to be autonomous. Sometimes you need direction, and if you don't have a strong culture, people would get lost. And I think that our job sometimes, for instance, in onboarding new people, is to show that culture with stories, so people know that they can ask for help, that what autonomy means, because it's just a word when they get in, they're not into the culture. So I think it's crucial. By my experience, it's something that happens organically, but it's critical. It needs to be tended. It's not something you can trust that it will fix itself,
Of course. But you're at Critical, right? And you're really big. So I'm curious about one thing, because you are mentioning that this happened organically. But how, in initial phase, how do you involve people? How did you involve people in the process, in the content creation, for example? How do you persuade them?
Well, in Critical TechWorks case, it's actually pretty easy, I think, because we have work-wise, we are really good at delivering quickly, and that's something that our developers are proud of. So when I started and I was still green at the company, I would timidly ask a developer to share something about their project or something that I could, submit somewhere, because I was starved for content, and I found that people really like to share because they are proud of the work they do. So one of our values is engineering excellence, and when I come in, a guy from marketing, engineering excellence, okay, nice alliteration, that's cool, but it didn't mean much more than that. And then I understand the true value of that value is that people want to share it. It becomes easy to create content. So we started bringing these stories and these success stories outside when we could, also inside. So as we grow, we grew really big in the past 5 years, and really fast. So we needed to make sure, and I think the first years of the company were more dedicated to making sure that the company became aware of itself and the successes that each unit and team had, more so than actually focusing on the outside. That came a little bit later. We had to protect ourselves because of our growth, not to lose our identity and our character.
Of course.
But as I was saying, it becomes easy to get that content. And when people see that the content that they bring is valued, then it becomes also easy to ask about other things um, like acting as ambassadors at an event, or doing a talk, something like that. Also sharing stuff on social media, so it becomes, because they feel that there's recognition once they see that the marketing team and the talent team really value the work that they do. They start to value the work that the marketing team and the talent team does as well. So they help, and they go to trade shows, and they post on social media with our guidelines. And, it becomes like a win-win relationship. We feed off each other. So, I think the answer is that it's not difficult when the culture is good, basically. And I'm very fortunate to work at a company where it's easy. If it's not easy, we have to push. It's I've been there in other places, but it's
different.
Content is always the biggest enemy of marketing, in my opinion. I think it's a hot take, because content is hard to come by. I mean, it's easy to come by, but good content is hard to come by.
Valuable content.
Yeah, exactly. So when you find a little gold mine, you have to treasure it and protect it. And when you do, that little gold mine will protect you as well.
And you mentioned one thing that it was very curious. You mentioned that there was stories that you were internally and externally. So you have stories that you don't share externally, right?
Yes. Well, we have our culture is more important to us than the opportunity that the content of our culture can provide for external communications. So we would never share something that would diminish our shared experience. That's one thing. So for instance, let me see if I can think of a good example, because it's tricky. But the way that we are organized is a bit different. Our roles have different names. All that are like internal tools to create a culture, to create a sense of us and them. It's not that there's anything wrong with them, but now you're in a different place, and these are the how it is. And
a lot of communities.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And once you have that community, our roles, our avatars, they become ours. And only after that engagement, internal engagement, was accomplished, is that is when we started to bring things outside. So everything we do, we actually do for the community, for our community first, and then we bring it outside for our events. We're coming up on our 5th anniversary. We're going to do a little event, and it's for the community. Then we'll see if there's content to post on it. There will be, but we're not really worried about it. We want to take care of our own. And that's employer branding as well, because people recognize that, and they will spread that they feel welcome. We had an amazing Christmas party last year in Alfândega, and we have had applications of people who said that they applied because they saw WhatsApp videos of their friends sharing the videos of the party. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So it's a good example of us working eternally for the culture, and then it pays off, without really trying, it really pays off. So you have to have the right intentions in mind, I think, and trust a bit in the process. Yeah.
And I actually was thinking about an an example, a really great example that you have, and that I'm a particular fan of it because I saw the videos that you post on Women's Day,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really amazing. How
Okay.
did you involve that? How did you involve people in it? Do you know? Because
Yeah.
okay, it started with something internal, but they 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 come to you to ask, okay, can you share something related to this, to this kind of story, or is you that go to them?
Yeah. Well, in this case, uh, well, we have a content strategy, and it's aligned with our social responsibility policy, with all sorts of initiatives, and we knew that we wanted to do something special for Women's Day, something a little bit out of the ordinary. And the idea came up by the marketing team, by a person in my team, and the idea was to uh, let me put this in context. Uh, there's still talk about women in tech like they're a rarity and they're the minority, and it's getting better, but it it should be faster, and the idea was not to shine a light on that point, on saying that we're X% women or something like that, but shine a light on the individual and their interests and what they are beyond Critical TechWorks, what they are outside of work, because that's what makes that's what makes people unique and diverse. Because we had a fado singer and a rock climber, and uh, they're different, but they're the same. And yeah, so the idea was, how should I say it? To show that women are, in this case, women, but it could be any other subject. People have whole dimensions outside of work, and at
Exactly.
Critical TechWorks, we need to value that, and we can't ask them to sacrifice any of it, first of all. We can't demand time from that. We want them because of who they are, not what they bring to the company. And that's what we try to put across. And also because some of our coworkers who have been with us from the first days, they are important people in the fabric of our culture, and they deserve a little bit of I wouldn't say recognition, but of acknowledgement. That it's not easy, but it's not, it shouldn't be as hard as it is, better yet. But yeah, you have the freedom to have all your dimensions with you when you work with us, and when you work in tech, not just with us, when you work in tech, in this industry.
That's really interesting because this is a living proof that you just think about the people and the people come
Yeah.
first. So
And yeah, and it's a good example of what I was talking about, of the stories, because I forgot to answer the second part of your question. We came up with the idea, and we knew one or two people who had interesting stories that we knew would be good content, and then we just created a little form and asked people to come up with ideas. And we selected, we have a backlog of content still, so
okay.
and lots of people with incredible stories, and then it was a matter of arranging the schedule and shooting the content, and that was that. So it was a mixture. We put a call to action, and people came, and they brought more than we could possibly imagine. We couldn't imagine we thought about many things. We didn't know we would have a fado singer and a Girl Scout. I mean, those two things we would never have imagined if we were thinking, brainstorming about it. And it's interesting. It's better than, anything that we would have come up with would have been cliche. Because if we were any other marketing team, not any other, but if we were a less people-focused marketing machine, we would do the stories and then look for people who fit it into the story. We looked for the people who brought the good stories,
Wow, that's really amazing.
Mm.
So, move on to another special part of ours. You already know a little bit of our little game, no?
Yeah. I think I forgot about it, but okay.
I will remember you.
Yeah.
I will remember you. The game is Love or Spill the Milk. And the idea behind it is, or you love it, you love the sentence that I will say, or you spill the milk. Say a little bit about it and why don't you agree with it?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sounds fun. Yeah.
First one. Although B2B and B2C are different, you can use similar strategies to interact with both of them.
That's a trickier one than I remember. I think it depends on the word similar. It hinges on that word, but yeah, I would spill the milk only for one reason, because I think all strategizing and all branding and all marketing starts with empathy. And by empathy, I mean putting yourself in your audience's shoes and discovering their pain points, whatever. That process is fundamentally different in B2C and B2B, because B2B is, the pain points are different. It's market-based, and it's not emotional most of the time. Of course, there are exceptions where I'm talking about.
Yeah.
In B2C, it's you need to engage them in a different way. You can't be too commercial. In B2B, you can't be not commercial. You have to be a little bit commercial. So and then you can use a similar framework for both, or a similar content strategy for both. Yes, I can almost agree with that. I would have to look at the case by case, but the beginning is, I think, it's completely different. And I've worked in both cases, and I enjoy both cases. They have their unique challenges. But yeah, I can't. I would spill the milk because I can't start the process in the same way for one and the other. That's my
Good answer, though.
Thank you.
Second, and I'm just adding a little bit fire in here.
Okay.
You already know me, so.
Yeah, bring it.
You just need to showcase the benefits and positive aspects of a company when you use storytelling in employer branding.
No. Yeah. Well, you can, and lots of people do, and we do that as well. But I don't think that's employer branding. I think that's advertising. Branding is about creating a perception, and benefits do not create a perception. I mean, some benefits do, but the Critical TechWorks policy about that is that we can't depend on that. Yeah, I think that. Can you repeat the sentence just so I can check a little trap that I think you might have put in there?
Of course. You just need to showcase the benefits and positive aspects of a company when you use storytelling in employer branding.
Okay. So regarding storytelling, I'll still spill the milk, because storytelling, you can't create a good story about perks, or you can create one good story about perks and benefits, but you can't create 2 or 3 or 4. And good stories are about people. Good stories are about, imagination, and they are a little bit complex, and you can't tell a story with numbers. And positive aspects is a bit like I don't know, making a bullet list of things. That's not a story. That's a bullet list. It's
I like the way you use that. Yeah.
yeah. It's like it's like asking for a summary of a book instead of reading the book. It's not the same. Yeah,
you're not creating value or connection.
Exactly. And the work of storytelling, I mean, you strategize and you create the story that you want to tell and how it fits. And then when you start creating content and you start, talking to people and putting it out there, it becomes bigger. If the story is just to list out in any creative way a list of things, the work does not create happy accidents that build into the story,
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
You need to take advantage of that, because it's the only thing that is making it real and is making it yours. It's very unique.
Exactly. They can, I mean, I think that benefits in the, the positive aspects can be the structure, or the, how should I say, the background of a story, maybe. Like they need to be there sometimes, and they need some light on them, but you can't really focus on them as if they are the protagonists of the story, because they are not engaging enough. As much as a narration, a narrative device, like a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's no beginning, middle, and an end to a positive aspect.
That's true. I agree. And since we are already talking about it, and about positive aspects, how can storytelling change negative ones at a company among employees or potential candidates?
Well, storytelling provides context for difficult decisions, for crisis, and storytelling is also a device for transparency, if you're honest, of course. So I think that when we need to change a negative perception that is untrue, that is, factually untrue, it's usually a matter of perspective. It's usually a matter of context. It's usually something that someone took out of context and presented it or interpreted it as something bad, and is not telling the whole story, or is not presenting it completely factually. And I think that storytelling will bring context to the issue, and place it in the big picture and make it make sense. Of course, there are situations where a negative perception is the truth, and well, that's a crisis, in my opinion. That's something, that marketing really can't do anything about. They can ignore, they can create other stories to distract. That's another story. When we think that the negative perception is not fair, a fair representation, then we employ our tools to work on it. We had instances where we had to do that, where certain actions were interpreted as policy changes, and they were not policy changes. They were enforcements of policies that already existed, and we put things in context and people understood. And like I said in the beginning, if there's a negative perception, the worst thing that you can do is treat people like they're not smart enough, even if they're wrong, you know? So storytelling, I think it becomes crucial to see, no, you're not right about this, and I'm going to explain why, and you're going to figure it out on your own once you see the whole picture. And that's how we approach that. We own up to it. That's the first thing. So that brings a little bit of respect, because we could, whistle to the side, like we say in Portuguese, and but no, we own up to it, and then we explain, and then we illustrate why, and people understand. They may not like it. They may still be, cold about it, but they'll understand, and that's all we can hope for in these situations. And then everything else will come into play, and we'll incorporate this issue into our strategy. So we'll not leave it alone. And yeah, so storytelling becomes really useful to create context on a negative perception. And when you have context, it makes sense. Sometimes you can change your opinion and start agreeing, okay, that was the right move to do. And sometimes you don't, but at least you understand, and there was a dialogue, and that's I mean, anything else would be irresponsible on our part if we didn't engage with an audience that has a negative perception, to try to make them understand. To distract them, to belittle them wouldn't be a good thing.
No, I think it's always a bad idea when you try to just ignore it.
Yeah.
I think the best way is always to be transparent and be honest about it, talk about it.
Yeah.
And then
that's well, transparency is, I think, is one of those things that shouldn't be celebrated, because it should be the norm, It's I like that person or that company because they're so transparent. No, being transparent is normal. It's when you're not transparent that you should be angry,
Yeah.
I think that marketing and communication steps in to help people understand. So you can be transparent, but people might not understand it. So you frame the thing in a context that makes sense for them and is the truth. So you're still transparent. So you're not dressing up. You're just zooming out, so they see the whole picture and the why of whatever it is. And that can be a sentence or 2 words, or it can be as direct as you want, and it's because of this. And then you zoom out, and people understand what this is, instead of being something vague,
It's giving them a different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally
exactly.
Agree. We already talked about the positive perspective, the negative one, and how you deal with it. But when you just do storytelling, how do you measure? How do you have feedback on it and evaluate this effectiveness of storytelling in employer branding?
Well, I think employer branding is one of the trickiest disciplines to gather insights, because you can use social media analytics, but it's not just about employer branding. You have to interpret it. You can use your career portal analytics to see clicks and click-through rates and stuff like that. But there's not one-stop shop for all your insights. So you have to deploy a multitude of listening tools and gathering tools so you can collect your insights. And sometimes that can be as organic as being as in a trade show and listening to what people are saying about you, talking to your coworkers. We have multiple tools, multiple channels, I should say, for our coworkers to speak with us on a variety of subjects. Yeah, like we have the I am forgetting the term, a feedback gathering tool that is sent out to every coworker, and they can talk about almost everything from leadership to outside perspective of the company, to their workload, whatever. So managers and the leadership and marketing and human resources are all made aware of what's going on. We have open Teams channels, so people are constantly talking, are constantly bringing things up, and but we don't differentiate. We don't have specific tools, one for HR, one for development work, one for tech ops, and one for marketing or communications or social listening. We allow people the freedom and the autonomy to speak up when they need to, and when they feel it's pertinent, and then we need to collect and analyze. That's the first part of my answer to your question. So in the sense that I don't think it's realistic for a company the size of Critical TechWorks, at least, to deploy, for instance, a strategy based on storytelling and then have one place where they can collect all the insights. They have to be always listening. That's the point I was trying to make. And then, specifically towards storytelling, I think the answer is going to be the culture again, because we promote a lot of crosstalk between departments. So, for instance, when we had the Women Beyond campaign, we launched it first on our internal channels and then on external media, and we already knew it was going to be a success based on the feedback we got internally, because people were really impressed, and they would see me or other members of the team, and they would congratulate, look, this is really good, and so we knew, okay, we did something right here, and that is something that is very frail. It can be easily lost in many companies, that openness to receive constant feedback. And I think I'm fortunate to work in a place like that I can easily get a sense, and then together we work these insights into something more qualitative, and then we go to Google Analytics and Instagram Analytics, and then we extract the information we need. But the first step is always, employer branding is directed to potential employees. Your current workers, your current colleagues are where your audience, your coworkers are where you want your audience to be.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
It actually made sense, yeah.
Yeah. So you need to look at your coworkers and think that, okay, I want more people to be like them, to come in, and I need to put them out there so people can see them, but I also have to listen to what they say, because all the valuable insights will be there, and then, of course, there's always trends, and society is always changing, so things change, and you have to be aware. That's our job. So the point I was trying to make in this big ramble is that I think that employer branding, it pays to be a little more subjective before being objective. Listening to people talk before going to the numbers, because otherwise it might induce you in error, and it's not a good way to see if the storytelling that you deployed is in accordance to your brand and your EVP, because clicks and engagements don't tell you that. People tell you that. So
you need to listen.
Yeah, exactly. I think when I worked in B2C, B2B, I'm sorry. I thought the other way around. I thought if I get the numbers and then I listen to people, it will be more insightful, because I can compare what they're saying to what I see in the numbers, and that is true. In that context, in this context, I think it needs to be the other way around. You have to have a sense of how people are responding before you see the mechanics of how they respond. And I'll shut up, because I don't think I will get any clearer than this.
No. It was actually very, very clear. And I think it's very unique the way that you involve your people in the process, because you're not just listening, you involve them. And not only, again, in the beginning, in the only phase that you are recording them or inviting them to participate, but you always listen to them afterwards, when you already have the content created. And that's very interesting and also very meaningful from my point of view.
Yes, I agree. I think it's about creating a relationship, and it's also about creating. We promote ourselves as part of our employer's brand as a flat hierarchy company, and this is an illustration of that. We don't divide, the communications team or the communications efforts from the rest of the company. It's meshed together. There's no levels to it. We depend on them as much as they depend on us. And we're just living by that principle. Is that okay? We are the marketing team. Our work is different. Our backgrounds are different. We are different people. But regarding our work, the frontiers mesh, and there are lots of instances where people came up to us with ideas for content. People who, for example, do sports, and they would like to have shirts with something as simple as having shirts on their back when they're playing paddle, or road trips that they do, stuff like that. So content comes to us really easy because of this effort to create this relationship of no walls. Nobody knocks on our door. And so when we talk about flat hierarchy, usually to the developers, that means that there are no unit managers. The project manager is not above you and stuff like that, and that makes sense to them. To me, in my experience, what I found is that my work is a lot freer, and my access to content is a lot more simplified. It makes my work really easy. Sometimes there's too much content for me to manage or in my team, and we have to say no to people, and people get sad. It's heartbreaking, because I've worked in places where I would lose sleep trying to find content. And this to say that there's a reason why I think that our culture works, and this is it in my personal case.
Thank you so much, Filipe. I could spend hours here talking, and I think we're over our limit, but, but thank
Sorry
you so
about
much.
that. No, it was my pleasure.
Don't apologize. It was very interesting hearing you, and thank you a lot for your time, for your great contributions. It was really good to have you here.
It's a pleasure whenever you want. It's a lot of fun. I always like to talk to you.
And for you that are listening to us, I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry about the time, but for me, it was very interesting to hear. And if you need, DM us with feedback to improve, follow us, and see you in the next episode.